We are going to get started, everyone. Thank you so much for attending online and in person for our July My Career Story. This month, we have Amy Gordon, who is a principal at Howard Kennedy Elementary School, which is just right down the street for 75 North. And there's a great partnership that we have with them. So she'll talk a little bit about that, but I'm going to introduce Amy, give a little brief bio, and then she will take it away. So Amy currently lives with her family in Omaha, where she moved in 1989 to attend the College of St. Mary. After obtaining a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics and computer information management with the intention of working in another field, she decided to return to College of St. Mary to obtain a teaching certificate. Her teaching career started with the Omaha Catholic School system, teaching computers and sixth grade math for 3 years. After this, she transitioned to teaching middle school math for the Omaha Public Schools, where she has spent the last 26 years in positions ranging from math teacher at 3 middle schools, instructional facilitator, school support liaison, and most recently principal at Howard Kennedy Elementary. During her career, she returned to school 3 times to obtain a Master of Teaching Mathematics from UNL, a Master of Curriculum Leadership from Midland University, and Certificate of K-12 Administration from UNL. In addition to being a first-year principal, Amy is also an adjunct teacher for Doane University. She has a lot on her plate. Besides education, she has also worked as a restaurant cashier, office secretary, and nanny since moving to Omaha. Hey everyone, Amy Gordon.
Thank you, everybody. My name's Amy Gordon. I'm honored to be asked to talk about my career path, and I thank you for coming out or tuning in today. I apologize for my script, but believe me, it's better for you. If I have something to look at, I will go all over the place and miss half of the things I wanted to talk about. So I wrote a little story. I'm a much better writer than I am a speaker. So I'm just going to talk about some experiences that led me to where I am today. And truly, if given a would you rather scenario, I would rather there be 40 middle school students out there and I get to teach algebra than talk about myself, but here goes. I'm moving into my 2nd year as a principal at Howard Kennedy Elementary. As she said, just down the road from here, my 26th year with the Omaha Public Schools and 29th in education overall. I have lived in Omaha since coming to the College of St. Mary. And this summer, my husband and I became empty nesters as my daughter followed her brother's suit and moved out on her own. This has been an adjustment, but at least they're both still in the Omaha area, I keep telling myself. As I thought about my career journey, I reminisced about many things which led me to this point in my career. And I had an opportunity to reflect on those experiences and how they guided my career path. I don't think I had ever really thought about that before. I'm going to reflect upon these experiences with you today and show that my path to education has been wildly emotional, windy, and never had a real clear destination at any point, especially this position as principal. That was really never my goal until it happened. I'm a true believer of things happen for a reason, and they happen when they're meant to. I grew up in a small town of Chelsea in Iowa. It's about a half a mile from the Iowa River, and at its height was maybe 500 people. It now sits at about 200 people after the floods of 1993. Many families moved away, some literally taking their houses with them on trailers. My family chose to stay, and my dad raised our house, the equivalent of whatever 4 of those gray cinder blocks were. And the floods have never made it to inside our house again. The grade school in town where my dad attended K-12 and myself and siblings attended K-6 is no longer there. Pretty much every business in town has gone away. The Catholic school my mom attended grade school was defunct shortly before I was born. Students in the town are now bused to a neighboring town about 12 miles away. While my parents have passed, my brother, his family, and several of my lifelong friends still call Chelsea home, and it will always be a special place to me. I remember so many happy memories from growing up there. It is truly what I think of when the term small town is used in any context. We knew everyone in town, and I can honestly say I have been inside every one of the houses in our town. Maybe just inside the front or back door, but literally every single house I've been inside. While times have changed, my brother still knows everyone that lives there. Maybe not on a first name basis and friends, but he knows them. It isn't the same as growing up, but feelings about thinking about it brings back of helping everyone in our town, no matter what, still holds true in my heart. A story that exemplifies the service mentality in our town was during the floods of 1993. I was home from Omaha to help move all of our first floor furniture up to the second floor because it looked like the water was going to come in. We grew up with floods about every other year, but none had been high enough to come into our house. Other than the cellar, no one has any finished basements in the town. After we took care of mom and dad's house, we moved about town helping others. It was expected. We worked shifts at the local fire department, answering phones and taking down the needs of those that were secluded in their houses. I remember giving out things to the volunteer firefighters, and they would take whatever was needed in a boat to these houses in the town. So we took care of everybody. It didn't matter who they were, what they needed. Somehow we figured it out. And I think back to that time, the fire chief was, the best word I can think of is curmudgeon to describe him. He was scary. And I remember growing up, he was kind of grouchy, but he told everybody that it didn't matter what they wanted. We're going to get it to them because we're a family in our town. And that really stuck with me. And knowing that he had those thoughts, even though he didn't show it to everybody, it meant a lot to me to know that that's how our town was run. Doing for others has always been a part of our lives. Growing up, my mom was the city clerk and a bank teller. My dad was the city's maintenance person. I rarely heard my parents tell anyone no. When asked for help, my mom looked out. No, when they were asked for help. My mom looked out for many in our small community, giving our recycling cans, because they're worth 5 cents in Iowa, to an older lady to turn in each week. She often gave $5 or $10 or possibly more to numerous people who asked or that she thought needed it. My dad often fixed things for others, not expecting anything in return. My parents taught my siblings and I more through their actions than their words that helping others was our way of life. I cannot say I always embraced this way of life. At times it felt as though my family was solely responsible for keeping the town running. From planting flowers in the spring and then filling up dozens of gallon milk jugs to go around watering them daily, to putting up Christmas decorations in the bucket of a tractor in the bitter cold, we did it all. It was a funny story is my dad came up with a system after we all moved out of a huge water tank on the back of the tractor and a sprayer. So he never got off the tractor and just drove around town and watered all those flowers that we probably filled 30 water jugs to do every day. Much of what we did in our town was for other people. We all had a paper route. We did this on our bike in the summer times, and when school was in session and we needed to get it done quicker, my dad drove us around and we all ran to the houses with the papers. He kept this job until about a month before he died, driving around, although he convinced everybody to let him put it in their mailbox rather than run it up to their door. I always appreciated the feeling it gave to have someone so grateful for our help. I wasn't always chipper and eager to do it, but it took me into my adulthood to realize that what we were doing was service, helping those that could not help themselves or who needed something as simple as companionship. Sometimes the cookies and the conversations after the task meant more to those people than the actual job we did. No matter how many times I said I didn't need those cookies, it didn't matter. My mom said, you sit down and you have those cookies with them. It took me a long time to realize that that was the important part. School was always something that I loved. I cannot think of a time that I didn't want to go and being upset when I actually was sick. I have several perfect attendance certificates to prove my dedication. I remember being eager to go to school every day. I wanted to get there to see the teachers, what were we going to do, and to see my friends. In elementary, I was often the teacher's helper, better known to my friends as the teacher's pet. At that time in life, the name did not mean anything to me, and I loved every minute of it. We were having fun and jokes were just us friends being funny. In our small school, only one of each grade, K through 6, with maybe about 15 in each class. We didn't even have a principal other than someone who came in once, maybe twice a week. There was no main office. The front doors were always open just to walk in, often had parents in the hallways just going to their students' classes. We didn't have hall passes. We didn't have cameras. We had a lunch recess supervisor who was probably at least 90 years old, who lived across the street, and she was on it by herself every day. No one was anywhere. We sat there for what seemed like the longest time wondering, should we just go home? Because we didn't want to go inside to deal with what was going to happen to us. We contemplated what to do, but we decided we had to go back in class. So at least there were 6 of us, and we walked into the room quietly with our heads down. The teacher did not say a word and continued reading the after lunch book as she did every day. The rest of the class looked up, but they did not say a word. We took our seats and looked back and forth to one another, wondering what was going to happen. The rest of the day continued, and the teacher never said a word about our lateness. We were on pins and needles. In whispering to a fellow student, they said, "She knew you were out there the whole time. We watched you from the windows." The teacher did not send anyone to get us, just let us stay out there until we were done. At the end of the day, she asked us to stay and asked us what we thought we should do about the situation so that it wouldn't happen again. We, the 6 of us, ended up taking ourselves out of recess for a week, said that we would help in the lunchroom to clean up instead of going to recess. And we would find and copy down 20 words from the dictionary that were words that we would be better at, such as respect and listening. We thought we fared pretty well until we got home and found out that our parents already knew what had happened. Their consequences fared to be a bit worse. Needless to say, my friends and I never missed a recess whistle again. Lessons I learned that play into my role as an educator is that sometimes adults do not have to talk at all, and to let students know that they themselves can decide what their consequence is. Often it's way harsher than what an adult would dole out. Another lesson I learned is that parental support is needed. Whether it's for academics or behaviors, parents play a vital role in a child's education. While in school, I was often asked to help fellow students with assignments. I was able to help the resource teacher with their groups, and many times was chosen to go run copies on the mimeograph. The purple fingers were a mark of privilege to an elementary student in my day. I think back, and these are my first exposures to being a teacher. I relished in the responsibility given to me over my fellow students. Throughout elementary, many teachers would express to me that I needed to be a teacher someday. These comments further added to my pride, and I was loving it. Until about 7th grade, when we had to go to a different town for middle school. My great aunt was the math teacher at the middle school. She had quite the reputation of being strict, hard on her students, and overall quite mean. I had heard stories from my dad and adults his age of how my aunt was as a teacher when they had her. But that didn't really sink in. So if you're doing the math, she was quite on in age. And if she taught my dad, and because she taught my dad and was now my teacher. Mostly my dad's friends laughed about it and didn't seem to be too scarred by the experience, so I didn't think much of their stories. Them saying that she wrapped their knuckles with rulers and made them stand in corners sounded to me more like the walking both ways uphill to school. So in class, I saw a different side of my great aunt and watched as she did hit the corner of a desk with a ruler to get a student to turn around one day. My friends did not love her, and I began to shrink from being associated with her. The jokes turned to, Amy, you're going to grow up to be a mean spinster math teacher like your great aunt. I was beginning to feel like being a teacher was something that did not appeal to me. I later found out that while she was old school in her ways, she had some of the best test scores from students coming out of her class. But unfortunately, in my 13-year-old mind, I saw my chance to make and keep friends was hinging on the need to distance myself from my great aunt and being a teacher. I began to say, I don't even want to be a teacher, and threw out wild, not even thought out ideas of maybe being a doctor or a lawyer, just to get the teacher vibe away from me. I allowed myself to think back to negative comments I had heard about my grandma as a teacher, that she was meaner than the nuns at the Catholic school. And I added those comments to my arsenal of reasons I did not want to go into education. Tack on my uncle's stories of his experience of being a principal at a small town that he would teach. He would clean the bathrooms, he would answer to phones and drive the bus route when there was no one else to do it. Very small town. They went into my file of don't go into education. As if I needed to be sure, I added the horrifying stories my older cousin told of her first year of teaching high school history in Chicago. I did not go back and amend it that she said after that, it was great. The first year was just bad. By the end of high school, I was absolutely set against education as a profession. I am not proud that I allowed myself to make, as a 13-year-old, such a decision. Even more disappointed that over the next 6 years, I've looked for any reasons to gain momentum in the not being a teacher. In that time, I did not work to see past the reputations that my grandma and aunt had, nor did I choose to see the pride my uncle had in telling these stories. He was proud of doing it all for his school. He wanted to be involved in every aspect to ensure families, their students, were being cared for in every way. I see a lot of their qualities have been ingrained in myself from watching them. I truly have the belief that we all need to have the attitude that whatever it takes for our students is what we should be doing. Toward the beginning of junior year, I found myself being asked, what did I want to do when I graduated? I knew that I liked helping people, so I thought about careers that would allow me to do that. Nursing became an avenue that I thought I may have wanted to pursue. Colleges talked about the great need for nurses and of being 100% guaranteed of a job after graduation. That sounded responsible and something that everyone would support. In addition to teachers, we had nurses in the family as well, and I had not heard any stories about them. I looked at several colleges and decided on College of St. Mary here in Omaha. I was drawn to Omaha because my cousins and I spent several summers here with our aunt and uncle, and because my mom attended Notre Dame High School in the Florence area for her high school years. She loved the city and talked of the great times she had here quite often. My first month at CSM in my nursing classes were fine. I can't say that I was loving it, but I didn't hate it. That was until a fateful day in anatomy lab. The day the professor decided to show us the cadaver. I wasn't overly excited, but maybe a bit intrigued. I stood back behind my eager classmates who were huddled around what I can only describe as a metal coffin. As he slid the metal cover off, I can recall a smell filling the air. Later, I learned that was formaldehyde. My memories of dissecting frogs, cowlungs, and sheep eyes came flooding back. I hated these activities in school, and I certainly am wondering why I thought nursing was for me. As my classmates crowded around the case, I inched forward cautiously. I peered into the case and I caught sight of the body, which had already been cut in several spots and seemed to be floating in the solution. I remember getting hot and weak in the knees. I backed up and steadied myself against the lab table and tried to breathe through it. It was not working. My head started feeling funny and I sat down on a lab stool and turned myself away from the class and the body. I am not sure how long I sat there with my head in my hands propped up against the table, but eventually someone notices and tells the teacher. He comes over, asks me if I'm okay, and says, "Let's get to the window to get you some air." As soon as I stood up, I went down. I'm pretty sure I came back quickly with everyone hovering over me and the professor telling them to back up so I could get air. I eventually was able to stand and get to the hallway and the window for air. The nurse came from the dorms, took me back to her office. I am sure this professor probably tells the tale to future classes coming in. This was my last day in the anatomy class and my last week in the nursing program. Within a few days, I had switched to general education classes and had a mandatory meeting with a career counselor to see what a better fit for me may be. In a not so surprising outcome, the career aptitude test showed teacher as a very high possibility. Other similar options included counselor and social work, and some of the other higher up possibilities centered on working with numbers, such as accountant, engineer, and actuarial sciences. With my teaching avoidance still in full force, I decided to go with the numbers aspect. I loved math in high school and pursued a degree in mathematics. The next 3 years, I worked towards a double major of math and computer information management. During this time, I continued my service upbringing by belonging to my college's service club, who worked in the community, nearby schools, and for the Sisters of Mercy retirement home on our campus. I had several babysitting jobs during college, worked part-time as a cashier at a local restaurant, and did work study hours as a receptionist at the college dormitory. In addition to these jobs, my main job during college was as a nanny to a family with 8 children. The family was and is very politically involved in Omaha. 2 of the children are currently serving in the Nebraska legislature together. While working for the family, I became involved with many of the community groups they volunteered with. My upbringing of service to others was increased tenfold, tagging along with this family. The family personifies what my parents ingrained in me, helping those who cannot help themselves. I do not think it was by chance that I took a babysitting job and ended up nannying for them throughout college. I remain close to all of them, helping on their campaigns with their extended families, and they've given me the affectionately known as the 9th child. I take great pride in supporting all of them in their efforts to enact change for groups on a large scale, whether it be equal rights for all, fair housing options, or the ability to wear their hair naturally in the workplace. They have taken my scope of the term service to a whole new level. So back to school and my career that wasn't yet education. There was a brief time I contemplated being a professional nanny. I loved my nanny job and taking care of kids, and the thought that maybe I could be a nanny for a family overseas appealed to me. This lasted just a short time as I met a guy I liked and decided that I would not be leaving the country for a job. After graduating with my double major in math and computers, I worked as an administrative assistant at a firm and studied for my actuarial exam. Besides the exams being difficult, boring to study for, and the office environment way too quiet and dull for me, I began to question my choices. I had serious doubts of being able to pass one of those actuarial exams if I ever took one. And again, I started to question that decision. Within a few months, I was back at CSM attaining a teaching certificate to teach secondary math. Yep, I gave in to the inevitable, as my friends say, they always knew I would. I crammed classes from College of St. Mary, UNO, and one from Bellevue University into 1 year to get this all done in the least amount of time possible. While I enjoyed my time working in the elementary schools through the service club, I was not willing to go back to school longer than the year. An elementary degree would have taken me at least another year, and I felt as though I would be wasting my math degree. So I abandoned the pursuit of nursing, dreams of being a nanny overseas, and made it 6-ish months in the actuarial pursuit, only to end up back where everyone said I would, teaching. My first job came the following year at St. Joan of Arc Catholic School, teaching 6th grade math and K-8 computers. I had student taught there and a position was opening at the end of the year, so it was comfortable, easy transition. I liked working there for 3 years, but began to really like teaching math and not so much the computers. So I began looking elsewhere. I transitioned into Omaha Public Schools as an 8th grade math teacher at Monroe Middle School. In my 13 years at Monroe, in addition to teaching math, I gradually added more and more responsibilities each year, such as team leader, academic data representative, math department chair, assistant girls basketball coach, and working to institute a service learning club. While I enjoyed serving in the leadership roles, I did not ever think that administration was something that I would want to pursue. I was committed to honing my math teaching and decided to go back to school to obtain a master's in teaching math from UNL. With this new degree, the principal from Nathan Hale Middle School called me to ask if I would be interested in moving schools to be her instructional facilitator and help her get their lowest in the state math scores up. This possibility intrigued me, working solely on math and trying to get the scores up. So the position of instructional facilitator was kind of just being added to some middle schools at the time. And while it was not administrative, it did put me on the leadership tree with the administrators. Among my colleagues that share the same position across the district, we affectionately call it the panic attack job. It was never the same each day, and you got to do things on the spur of the moment. If a teacher wasn't there, you had to make sure her plans were in place. You had to make sure that the kids were covered. You had to make sure other teachers were able to come in and help out. So every morning was a new adventure. Each school has some similar expectations of the instructional facilitator position, but also some very different ones depending on their schools. My duties included all state testing coordination, ensuring all staff had the curriculum they needed to teach their class, working with new teachers to ensure a smooth transition into teaching, co-teaching with teachers, helping them with their practices, and helping in classrooms when needed. I also taught math classes so we could lessen the size of the math classes at Hale so we could really work on the scores. I worked alongside, excuse me, it was in this position that I found that I enjoyed being involved with the inner workings of the school. I also met my mentor here, one of the assistant principals. I worked alongside her throughout the 4 years I was at school, being exposed to administration duties such as building the master schedule, some discipline, state reporting, and training teachers on how to use online resources. I found that I really enjoyed these tasks and began to believe just a little bit that possibly I might want to work in administration someday. Since I thought I might want to, I took a baby step and got another master's degree in curriculum and instruction. Not an admin degree, but could maybe help me with my instructional facilitator job, maybe be a curriculum specialist at the high school level. So that happened while I was at Nathan Hale. And I was content as serving as the instructional facilitator when my mentor was asked to become the principal of Miller Park Elementary. She asked me to move with her. I was not sure I wanted to go back to elementary again, but I really wanted to work with my mentor. I enjoyed the elementary age kids at my first job. I just didn't love teaching computers. So I convinced myself that the move was a good idea. I was learning a lot from my mentor, and I knew I wanted to continue in that. The next year I spent as her instructional facilitator for elementary and gained much more knowledge of the workings of an elementary school. I instantly fell in love with the elementary age students. This role, I was able to interact with them in the spaces outside of the classroom. I went in and out of rooms. I saw them at lunch and recess and worked with them in the hallways. I felt as though I found my niche. While I almost always loved going to work before, coming to my elementary job was a new kind of happy. In my first year at Miller Park, I My mentor suggested that I pursue an admin degree, especially since the school was on the cusp of maybe having a high enough enrollment to possibly hire an assistant principal. We had a plan. I'd get my admin degree. I would be your assistant principal forever. So I did as she asked, and I returned to UNO to work toward my administrative certificate. The thought of possibly working with her was very appealing to me. I told myself and others that I only wanted to be an assistant principal. The thought of being the last stop for angry parents, student discipline, and some not so other great things scared me. After getting my admin degree, as an assistant did not get added to Miller Park, but my mentor negotiated with the TAC building to allow me to be the school support liaison, which was an admin position, and the instructional facilitator. This position placed me on an admin contract, but I also still performed the duties, my instructional facilitator duties. I added handling attendance issues, helping families with barriers to their students attending school, connecting them to resources and counseling services. I dealt with discipline of students, and I got to do a few evaluations of paraprofessionals. I enjoyed this combo job for 2 years and thought we had it made. We loved Miller Park and we loved working there. The district decided to restructure the position of school support liaison. The restructure would require me to give up the IF responsibilities and travel to numerous schools. I chose to return to the IF position, which allowed me to stay at Miller Park and not have to travel to 5 schools. Shortly after making this decision, my principal was asked to move to King Science Middle School. I had a huge decision to make: follow my mentor back to middle school or remain at the school I was literally in love with. After much contemplation, I decided to follow her to King to be her instructional facilitator. I knew I would be applying for assistant principal jobs within a year or so, and working a little more time alongside her appealed to me. At King, I worked as the IF along and with the magnet coordinator. At King, they have a zoo academy and a healthcare academy, where the students got to go to UNMC. We got to go to take them to the zoo for lessons. And then we added my principal and I worked at the Space Academy to join with their planetarium that they already had in the building. So we had a busy 2 years there. Service learning was also a huge component at King, and we worked with all the academy students to do that. With the teaching shortages, I also taught math in addition to my job as IF. During this time, as before, I worked closely with the principal. She allowed me to be involved in every aspect of the workings of the school. During the 3 years, I applied for many principal assistant jobs, the supervisor of mathematics for the district. And while I got a few interviews here and there, I was not chosen for any of them. My mentor retired after 2 years at King Science and moved on to the university level, working with students wanting to become teachers. She convinced me to be an adjunct professor for the university and teach a class called Assessment for Learning. This new experience was daunting, teaching adults who wanted to be teachers. But training pre-service students to become good teachers was rewarding. I did this for 3 semesters up until last semester, but decided to give it up as traveling to Lincoln once a week and the preparation needed was just too much with my principal job. It is something I will think about returning to in the future. So last summer, it happened. I was serving as the summer school principal at Wakanda Elementary. And on the first day with students, I received a call to come to HR. When I explained that it was the first day of summer school, it was made clear that it was important that I come to talk about a principal position at Kennedy that day. I had applied for several assistant principal jobs, but not a principal job. To say the least, I was shocked. My mind was racing. I had not prepared. I did not know many things about Howard Kennedy. I was dressed in summer comfortable school attire, not interview with the superintendent attire. I had not contemplated the chance of ever being asked to be a principal rather than an assistant. My mind raced the few hours before going to the TAC building. I quickly made my rounds in classrooms, met the students, made sure things were running smoothly before I snuck out to head to TAC. During the entire interview, I was having a conversation in my head. Do I want to do this? Can I do this? I'm not ready for this. What did I read about Kennedy School earlier? What did she just ask me? At one point, I remember her asking me if I needed some water. I obviously was a little verklempt. So when I left, I was sure that I came across just unprepared and nervous as all get out. I knew that I did not look like principal material, capable of running a building and leading people. After reflecting and talking to my mentor, I did feel a little better and convinced myself that I could do this job. I did know a lot of things about being principal. I was knowledgeable about what it takes to do the job from watching my mentor for the past 10 years. I gained a little bit of confidence and then started to say, what if I don't get it? 2 days later, I was offered the job, which brings me to my role as principal at Howard Kennedy Elementary School, the place I truly believe I am meant to be. The saying goes that good things come to those who wait, and I feel like I won the lottery. I reflect on the positions I did not get and know that they were meant for someone else. Kennedy was meant for me. Howard Kennedy Elementary is a great school, a hidden gem. Our population consists of students from 7 different language backgrounds: English, Korean, Spanish, Somali, Nuer, Arabic, and Burmese. One of our community partners made the comment that Kennedy was like a small model UN when they visited. While our students all speak English, we work very hard to include families in everything we do. The information sent home is translated into languages, and we work with students to relay message to their parents about events. The district interpreters are wonderful in getting messages to our families and back to staff. 8 years ago, Kennedy had some of the lowest test scores in the district, and a plan was put into place to make it a turnaround school. As you probably know, the neighborhood was in the first phase of redevelopment with 75 North. The premise was to model the community after Eastlake, Atlanta, which is a purpose-built community. It has mixed income housing where the school plays a vital role in ensuring the education of children from cradle to college. Howard Kennedy based itself on Drew Charter School in the community, in the Eastlake community. While a public school cannot necessarily do all the things a charter school can, the former principal, district, and 75 North have taken the major components of the model and replicated them at Kennedy. Through a Sherwood grant that pays the extra salaries of our staff, our students at Kennedy go to school 45 minutes longer than students in the rest of OPS. This time allows teachers to collaborate during the school day. By giving them the time during the school day, we can ensure that it is happening and leadership can keep a pulse on instruction. Research has shown that when given time to work collaboratively, teachers become better at their craft and student learning is stronger. Our teachers are organized into professional learning communities that support one another in all aspects of the job. While teachers have the focused planning time, our students have an opportunity to experience classes such as STEAM and Sprouts learning the violin, which are unique to Kennedy, in addition to PE, music, art, and library. Our school is also fortunate to have a math lab and literacy lab for intervention to our Tier 3 students who need the most intensive assistance. Kennedy focuses on project-based learning. And in project-based learning, teachers make learning come alive for their students. Projects go over an extended period of time, and they integrate the standards from the state into a real world problem or answering a complex question. They demonstrate their knowledge and skills by creating a public product or presentation for a real audience. We are working on a school-wide PBL experience for our students in third quarter right now. It's going to focus on economics. And their demonstration of knowledge will be a maker's market where they can showcase the products that they have made and sell them. We are in the early stages of planning, but already have community partners willing to lend a hand in helping our students learn the design process, advertise their products, and learn about the business side of selling. We're very excited to embark on this endeavor. Kennedy has many community partners that come in to work with our students throughout the year. No more empty pots. Culinary students and teachers from Metro Community College, Brain Exchange, the AIM Institute, Prairie STEM, to just name a few. They all contribute to giving our students experiences which they may not have ever had outside our school. Our partnership with 75 North has allowed for teacher grants to be given. Our teachers can write a grant to request supplies, whether it's for a PBL unit or something they want to do for their kids, or to bring a speaker in or take them somewhere. So we are very appreciative to 75 North for doing that. They are also a thought partner in our planning and provide support through their Atlanta connections with purpose-built communities. Over the 7 years, Kennedy students were on a trajectory to improve their state testing scores. But unfortunately, COVID hit. We did not get to take the test that year to substantiate the data that they were on the trajectory to meet their goals. In the years that followed, with remote teaching and inconsistent testing, the numbers were not able to be a solid reflection of what our students could do. This past year, we feel that we have gained an indication that our numbers are again moving in the correct direction. Looking at a district test called MAP, 90% of our students showed growth from fall to spring this past year. We are very proud of the hard work our teachers and students did to accomplish this. While Kenny has not been immune to the problems of the rest of the district regarding staffing, we are making it work with who we have been given. Our staff has stepped up to fill gaps and ensure that we are doing whatever it takes for our students. It is truly a family atmosphere, and we all support one another in what is best for students. I feel that I have been waiting for Kennedy to find me, and somehow it did. Timing, luck, fate, chance, divine intervention, whatever it was meant to be. My career path has twisted, turned, come to some dead ends, backtracked, and taken me just where I needed to be. Thank you for listening to my career story. Oh. Yes.
Thank you so much for preparing all of that. That was fantastic.
I am a much better writer than I am a speak off the cuffer.
So much of your story was talking about mentorships with your family members or what advice would you give to others who maybe just starting their career professional who have to seek out mentorship opportunities either on both ends and helping others?
Yeah.
Finding someone that they can look to for advice?
Yeah, I think as a leader, my job is to grow leaders and give teachers the chance to be a leader. We recently came back from a PLC conference, Professional Learning Communities, and really the goal is everyone can lead. We all should have the same goals. We all should be doing the same things. So I hope that all principals or anybody in positions see that. And as for teachers, look for someone doing something you want to do, or someone that you connect with their ideals, with their morals, and just connect yourself to them and follow what they do and soak up everything they know, because that is how I gained the confidence that I could be a principal.
Amy, you mentioned that all of these schools, Monroe, Nathan Hale,
Yeah.
Moore Park, they're all in North Omaha.
Yes.
Is that intentional or?
I don't know that it was intentional. When I interviewed, I had about 4 opportunities before I got Monroe. And I just really liked the people that were in on the interview. I felt comfortable with them. A couple of the other places were high schools, and I just kind of had really grown to love middle school students being at the Catholic school. So I kind of think that had I loved Monroe. And so I started there. Then I was recruited to go to Nathan Hale by Mrs. Colvin, and she was the principal there at the time, and she was a fellow math teacher previously, so I just think it just happened by fate, whatever it is, but no, I love it, and when I found out every principal job or every assistant principal job I applied for happened to be North, just because I'm comfortable. Yeah. Yes.
You've done a lot of, well, undergraduate and graduate coursework. Is there anything thinking back, like, any courses that really stood out that you took that were either super challenging or super fun or anything?
Yeah, well, I love math. I really do. Not enough to be an actuary, I found out, but I do love math. And, my math, it was called Math in the Middle, and it was kind of a focused course for teachers who and it was like an intense Saturday once a month, and I loved it. I would stay up till, all hours of the night doing math problems, just because everybody that taught there and everybody that, it was just, it spoke to me, and I wanted to do well, and I loved my Math in the Middle, my teaching math masters. Yes.
What advice would you give to a younger person trying to decide if teaching was right for them?
So the Doan program that I was involved with as an adjunct professor was called the Fast Track program, and it was for people that already had a degree in something else other than education, and they could come back and within, I think, a year and a summer get a teaching certificate. So I was with the other people they said, we really have to let them know what teaching is like. We have to, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to. So my advice is get into a classroom, find out if you really love it right away before you keep going on a path, and ask for help. I can't tell you how many times they would say to me like, oh, I can't do that. I said, have you talked to your supervisor? Have you talked to your principal? Well, no, I don't want them to think I don't know anything. As a principal, I want you to come to me. I want to know when you're struggling, and I want to be in there helping you side by side to get there. So yes, ask questions. Yes.
So I know that teaching can be stressful and throughout these different roles. How did you maintain yourself? What did you like to do to kind of
you just have to remember it's for the kids, and the ones that are fighting you the most need you the most. And I think if you can you just have to keep reflecting on what else can I do? What else can I do? How else can I get to them? And eventually they're going to know you care and they'll come around, but you just can't give up, and you always have to think, what else can I do? Yes.
One of my really good friends, her sister teaches middle school in Omaha, and I would hear stories from her during the time of COVID.
Yeah.
And just even for those students, it's really hard and difficult.
Yeah.
I can't imagine for elementary students. How do you guys?
So I was at the middle school during COVID.
Okay.
So I was not in the elementary, but I have heard horror stories. That they would, be bringing their babies, sisters to the screens, and their pets, and they said, maybe after third grade, it got a little better, but second grade on down, they said they didn't get a lot done. And thank God for the age of iPads and online tutorials, and not that those are a substitute for any teacher by any means, but it helped maintain some of that.
something better than nothing?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So you talked a lot about growing up in this very service-oriented family and then moving out to teaching, and just thinking about teachers and suffering from burnout. What helped you to use your service skills, and I guess I should ask, did you ever get to a burnout phase, and what kept you from getting to that?
No, I don't think I did. I don't know that's, I know I did not love teaching computers, but I was okay doing it. And I never thought like, I can't do this anymore. COVID was tough, but I'm of the mentality of let's not complain about it. Let's figure out how to fix it and make it better. So when I hear my staff kind of getting a little low, I mean, I do whatever I can to lighten the mood, lighten their spirits, just do something nice, random acts of kindness. And we do a lot of things at school that are just very lighthearted and hopefully put smiles on their faces to just know that I feel you. I know it's not easy and let's get through this together. So they don't feel like they're alone.
What about just, teachers in general, we've been around so many, like what makes them successful? Is there personality traits or soft skills or anything that would help someone in that field?
Yeah, I think that I think we're getting better at it, but it's just the relationship is the first thing. It can't be, I am an awesome math teacher and I'm going to teach them math. No, you gotta be there. You've got to get to know them first and you've got to make them want to learn math. And a lot of times I think we focus more on what we're teaching than who we're teaching. And so we do a lot of social emotional things in the elementary level, and it is kind of moving up to the middle school level because we saw that lacking at middle schools. They needed team builders and they needed to get to know each other on a level outside of the neighborhood. So we do a really good job at the elementary level, but I mean, I think it's moving now into middle and high schools. All right.
Wow.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will see you again in August. Have a great day.